Battery went dead on the other one. It says battery right on it, so that's good to know, if you're looking at it, that is. Somewhere around here I've got a Surefire flashlight, and I can't find it anywhere. And by no means was it an inexpensive one. Alright, so we're going to wait for that to dry a little bit. I'm going to pull it through this way, then I'm going to back it out this way, and then we'll be all set with the wire. Then you can see that I made a mess because some of the epoxy was dripping out of this piece. Drip off, bongo. I just knocked that wire off before the epoxy had a chance to sit in. Come on, be nice, be nice, be nice. Thank you. Okay. Oof. I started to work on this with the epoxy, and it dripped a little bit, and it started dripping on everything else, and the next thing you know, I got a sticky mess over here on everything. So I'm going to have to get that wire done, hopefully, and then make another batch of epoxy to clean up the mess that I made here. I'll tell you, we've been having some good weather, really. We've been lucky. I'm hoping, well, I'm going to tell you something though. We get this thing on the internet. It's called The Patch. Now, I don't know if they have it all over or just in this area, but it's local, you know, somewhat to this area. If you go The Patch, Brantford. You know, now I don't know. Well, let me look real quick. I mean, I don't know if there's a Patch Richmond, you know, a Patch New York, New York, or a Patch the Bronx, or I don't know, you know, if it's anything other, or just Connecticut, you know, or just the shoreline. I have no idea. But now, that's something I don't like. But anyway, The Patch was saying that we are apparently going to have a tough winter. So, go figure. I got a two-wheel drive vehicle now. Well, I still have the Astro van. You know, the wife has it. So I can use that if I have to. And if they talk a heavy-duty storm coming, I'll just throw a set of chains on it for now. I got to go see the guy to see if he's ready and able to do the conversion on it. I was told, and he said not a problem, he just has to hunt down the parts for it. You know, I said, well, okay. And he said it's going to cost about $7,000. I said, well, okay. I said, I don't care if it's all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. You know, as long as it's done. And to be honest with you, I kind of like all-wheel drive. If this van would run like the Astro van does in all-wheel drive, give it to me. Now, I've driven the Toyota all-wheel drive van, you know, the little van that they had, all-wheel drive, came out years ago. I've driven the Subaru, because the wife had one, again, all-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive, I've driven them all the time. I've had the F-250, extra cab, four-wheel drive, you know, pickup trucks. I had the Internationals. I had two Jeeps. But I'm going to tell you something. The Astro van, I don't know what it is about the all-wheel drive Astro van, but it is the best vehicle I've ever owned when it comes to driving in the snow. It goes places and that my four-wheel drive and the other all-wheel drives wouldn't go. It's just a phenomenal piece. They stopped making it in 2005. And they came out with a full size. I think they called it the, oh shit, now I can't remember. Started with an S. Anyway. And they had that out for a while. Then they came out with a all-wheel drive, four-wheel steering. I think that was the pickup truck. But meanwhile, their all-wheel drives are phenomenal. The problem being with them is they're a pain in the ass to work on. To do a tune-up on that thing, it's like you got to take the tires off to even think about getting into a spark plug. They're just a nightmare to work on, and I think that's one of the reasons why they stopped making them. Because even though the dealers want nightmares, you know, because they make money on the time, they don't want it, because when it starts costing them, where they can make more money on getting more vehicles out than they can with one vehicle being there all day, they'd rather get more vehicles out. It's like a cab, a taxi. You say, oh, they're taking me for a ride. You know, like Jack Cassidy that time. You know? Well, you know what? They make more money on short rides than they do on taking you for a ride. Because every time they throw the meter clicks up X amount of dollars. You throw the meter, you make 50 cents, we'll say. Now it's probably like $2 or $3, but let's just say, hypothetically, they turn the meter on, it automatically goes to 50 cents. They drive you around the quarter, it comes to 90 cents. They drive you 10 miles away, it's up to, we'll say, $1.50. You know what I mean? Again, hypothetical numbers. Where if they sit at the railroad station and went from the railroad station to the Park Plaza, all right, which is about a 60-cent ride, but they turn the meter on, it's 50, so now we're talking $1.10. They can probably do 5, 6, or 7 of those by the time they do that one for the $1.60. So they're making more money, because every time they throw the meter, it's 50 cents. So if they go to Park Plaza 10 times, boom, 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 all right? Plus the time that it took to get there, so the shorter rides actually add up more than the long rides. So they don't really want to take you for a ride. They want to get you in, get you there, and get you out. That's why they're always, you see them driving like crazy. The more calls they make, the better it is. Taking you around for a joyride is not helping their pocket. I drove a hack, actually. One of them I was hired to drive. I mean, well, one of them I was, the yellow cab in New Haven at the time was like the only company around. They bought and owned all the permits, basically, except for maybe 4 of them. So they had like a monopoly. The state, Department of Transportation, would only allow so many medallions or licensing within a certain amount of area, and so many for the state. So they have so many in this area, them in that area, but they can only have so many in this area within the state. Well, Yellow Cab owned like all of them, but like 4. You know, for this area, you know. So they had it pretty well tied up for this demographic area, except for 4. But I worked for them. The reason behind it was they were getting robbed a lot, especially at night. You know, they're an open target. You know, there's money in the cab. You know, and most of the time it's in the driver's pocket, you know, but meanwhile there's money in the cab. So they were getting robbed. So I got hired on to drive at night to see if I can grab some of these people that are robbing the drivers. Hold on, I'm getting coffee. I've got about a half a cup left, so I said, you know what, let me drink it. So in doing so, I found it to be interesting because you hear a lot of stories, you get a lot of different people, they want to talk, you know, you get to know people, if you know what I mean. Now I did catch a couple of people trying to rob me. A woman, we called it Welfare Day, and not that I mean anything by it, but that's what we used to call it. That's when a lot of the people would get their food stamps or their assistant checks, and they would use a cab because they'd have to go grocery shopping and stuff like that. So we called it Welfare Day. And you know that you're going to be doing a lot of work, carrying a lot of bags. Now we don't take them any further than the door, not even the door, the curb. All right, you get in the cab, we help you put them in the trunk or in the back seat, you know, and then we get you home and we help you get them out of the car, either on the curb or if it's just, you know, a few feet to the step, yeah, we'll take them to the step for you, you know, so you're not leaving all your groceries on the curb. You know, so we're always considerate regardless. Well, most of us anyway. And one day I take this woman, I pick her up, and she was going to Spring Street from the boulevard. Now this wasn't a big bill. This wasn't, you know, anything there anyway. Anyway, I wasn't getting paid by the job because that's what they do. They get a percentage of their pay off the money that they earned. It's a little bit different now, but it's still the same principle, same idea. So this probably would have been, well, it was $1.10 because we're only talking a few blocks. The meter trip was more than the actual time getting there. So it was $1.10. And you know you're not going to get a tip because they really can't afford it. And you understand these things. You know, I mean, you feel bad sometimes. So this woman's in the back seat, big old woman, and I lean over on the back of the seat and I said, it's $1.10. And she starts looking through her pocketbook and she pulls out a knife and she said, this is a stick up. Give me your money. And I'm looking at it. It's broad daylight. Now in the front seat, there was a few bags and there was a bottle of ketchup. I says, what? I says, come on. You got, you know, and you know, I don't know if it was just me or not, but I mean, I said, are you serious? Broad daylight? I know who you are, where you live. Does that make sense to you? You know, and while give me your money, give me your money. And I said, all right. And as I turn around this way, I grab the ketchup bottle. I go, bam, right in the head. Knocked her out. Ketchup and blood all over the car. Right? Naturally, I call for backup. And we used to use a cab number that I'm not going to tell you what it is. But that cab number never existed. If we use that cab number, they know you're in trouble. So I called in cab number, and they know where I picked up the call and where I was heading. So they have an idea where I am. And they usually start by sending back up to where you were heading, the destination. This here way, if they backtrack to where you picked up at, they're going to see where you were. So meanwhile, I push her out of the cab. I take all of her bags out of the cab. I put them all on the curb with her. All right, and I just stayed there and waited for backup to come. It took me about 10 minutes to explain what I just explained, and it says, go ahead, all right, you know, on the job. So I went back to work. But yeah, we got a few of those. But meanwhile, I found it so interesting that one day the other company that was out there, like I said, they owned most of the tickets, the medallions, the licensing. But the other company was called Carolyn's Checkered Cab. He had 3 cabs and they were checkered. All right, the checkered cabs. And he says, you want to work for me? Now, he didn't know that well, okay, anyway. He says, give you 50% of what you earn. You get 50%. Oh. He says, and we go by appointments and contracts only. And we got the New Haven Airport contract, so anything coming in out of there is ours. We just have to be there every time a flight comes in. So you know what? I found it interesting. I said, I'll do it part-time. Because it was interesting. Now I couldn't tell you how it is, but I found it interesting back then. And I'll tell you what, made big money. Because every time a plane came into the airport, or couldn't come into the airport, or couldn't leave the airport, right? They would go to, from New Haven to like Kennedy, New Haven to LaGuardia, New Haven to Islip. Well, they may have 5 people there that have to go to Kennedy. So what would happen was, they would give us, we had the contract on it, we would take them and we would get $175 a head to drive them from New Haven to New York. So $175 a head times 5 people, it'd take you 3 hours, you know, round trip. But look at the money you just made. So some of those private cabs and those long jobs, you would make some good money on. You know, because again, you're not making the throw of the meter, but you're still making enough money on the contract. All right, White's home. I'll be right back.